the Big Ten and SEC's world, and we're all just living in it. We're back. Let's get to it. This is Iceman and Coach. I got that summertime sadness. We got college football. We have just a ton of stuff to talk about. Welcome to Iceman and Coach, everybody. It is the Iceman, Matt Freites. That is the coach, Brad Powell. We have a lot to talk about, buddy. It's good to see your face. How you doing?
Iceman, doing well. Living the dream as always. Totally immersed in summer sports, softball, t-ball, you name it. It's going on. It's been a ton of fun, though. I wouldn't have it. I told my wife this. I really wouldn't have it any other way, honestly. Like tonight, we didn't have a game. And outside the fact that it gave us an opportunity to do this, like I'm kind of like, oh, great. I get to mow the grass now. It just needed to be done, and it was just really nice to do it. But I'm just like, that's what I have to look forward to when there's not a sports game. And I help coach my kids' teams and stuff. So I enjoy that. So been busy with that, man. Enjoying it. We've had a kind of a mild spring, early summer here in Central Illinois. It's been nice in a lot of ways, but I am ready for it to heat up a little bit, get out to the lake, have some fun. So that's right around the corner, I'm sure. How about you, buddy?
Living the dream is my standard issue answer to everybody whenever they ask me what is going on. But we're kind of getting away from the busy time of year. We went to Italy, which we talked about last time, and I was at a great show, Metallica at Lane Stadium in Blacksburg, which was wonderful. And I was communicating with you through that. And we're getting into the summertime, some vacation plans, stuff like that. So I think it's getting a little bit better for me. And before you know it, buddy, we're going to be into football season. And more importantly, for the one person we have watching, Braves talk season coming up here.
That's right. Yeah, I'm sure we both know who that person is. I'm surprised. I was expecting when I told him we were doing this tonight that I was going to get a hard time about getting the Braves talk going. But I think at this point, there is a bit of a lull. We probably missed our window to really hit the roster talk, which is fine. No harm done. And now we might as well kind of wait till some of the non-conference schedule talk comes out, and that'd give us plenty of conversation and to kind of banter about and get ready for the start of the season. I know that it has been discussed, and it's out there now that they're playing their holiday multi-team exempt tournament they're playing in this year is at the Wide World of Sports in Orlando at Disney World.
Okay.
So that's the OG is saving his pennies, hoping he looked into the flights and even like the budget airline Allegiant that we use all the time because they do a good job here locally and it is really cheap usually. The flights are outrageous. It's like $600 round trip to Orlando, which is like 3 times as much as any other flight that they normally have for something like that. So he's like ready to drive if that's what it takes.
He's gonna get back in the big rig.
Yeah, I mean he'd love that. He would love that for sure. But we'll see. We'll see what the fall brings and when that time of year comes around. But there'll be plenty to talk about though when it comes to the Braves. No doubt about that.
For sure. I'm looking forward to it. So tonight on the docket, we have the new college football playoff, I would say, proposal that's out there. Not an official proposal. We're going to talk cities, heroes, villains, and we're also going to talk about Pete Rose, Jim Irsay. But before we get into that, you told me something offline that I think might actually be great fodder for today. So you're doing the softball thing, and you had an interesting encounter relating to sportsmanship. So why don't you go ahead and share it with everybody, because I don't know this story. I'm hearing this live for the first time.
All right. So my daughter plays she plays travel softball. She plays both rec league and travel softball. So her travel team kind of last minute joined got into a tournament this past weekend, an hour and a half away. And the tournament was advertised as for C-level or rec teams. So for those of you who don't know, these travel programs, you get certified or, as an A, a B, a C. And even within those classifications, you'll hear people say like, oh, we're a high B, we're a low B, we're this, we're that. We are solidly a C team. Okay. We are what kind of we refer to as a travel light program. Like, we've played, I think, 21 games so far since since like April, since the beginning of April, and we've probably only got like we might play 30 games from April to the end of June. Like it's nothing crazy. We rarely practice, truthfully. It's not what you kind of hear as a stereotypical travel team. I mean, frankly, I wish we practiced maybe a little bit more than we do. But so we kind of got in this tournament last minute. C team or rec level teams. We're a C team. We got in. So we get down there. So there's 2 rounds of pool play. So we play this one team that had a good record from what we were able to tell. We come out, we beat them 10-1, but the girls played some of the best softball that I've seen them play. Next game, we go to play this team, and it's very apparent. I could tell when well, first of all, I'll say this: in pool play, they do a coin toss for home and visitors, and I could tell immediately when the coach of the other team walked out for the coin toss that he was a total douchebag. I mean, he might
That's
as well
fair.
a sign around his neck. I mean, it was just very obvious that this guy was going to be a problem in some way, shape, or form.
So
And
before you go on, was he like overly competitive douchebag guy? Was he like, because there are different tiers when you talk about like kids sports.
sure, I mean, he just had a look about him, man. Like, I kind of like I referred to him as the 3 coaches of the other team as, like, flat bill bros. Like, they're, like, middle-aged guys like us. They're and not I know people wear them, but, like, they all had their flat billed hats and, they were just they looked like they were, very serious about whatever was gonna take place. I don't know, and, like, we're just the most casual, laid back people on our side, and, so anyhow and the way he was talking, I could hear his, like, tone of voice and his demeanor as he was talking to our coach and the umpire during the coin toss, and I just like, yeah, this is I just had a bad feeling, about the guy. So we come out, I could tell that their team was gonna struggle. Just watching them warm up, I watched their pitcher throw as our girls were getting ready to come up and hit in the top of the first, and it was if I did I mean, I'm assuming it wasn't, but it could have very well been her first time ever pitching, in an actual game. I mean, that's what it looked like. And so our girls get up there, and the balls that were in the strike zone were just meatballs, to some and, like, so our girl like, our first hitter, I think she hit an inside the park home run, like, and, our girls are just teeing off, and our coach starts, he starts holding our girls at third base, like, unless they're literally, like, forced in, like, and we scored 10 runs in the top of the first, and honestly, they only had recorded 1 out at that point in time, and we had the bases loaded, and he had, once the pitcher is on the rubber, you can't leave the base until she releases the ball.
Right.
He had 2 of our girls step off the base to end the inning, just to say, "Okay, that's enough," type of thing. That's what, our coach did that. So he comes over, our coach did, and he tells me, he goes, "Hey, you might have to go out and coach third base next inning because if not, I might get in a fight." And I'm like, "What's going on?" He's like, "As soon as our first batter like hit that ball, they're going, there's no 10-year-old that hits the ball like that. This isn't a C-level team. You guys don't belong here. What are you doing?" And our guy's like, "Hey, buddy, like our record's like 6-14. Like we just got beat. Our last doubleheader we played, we got beat collectively like 38-7, like in 2 games, by other C-level teams." And so, the guy's like, I don't even want to talk to you. I have nothing to say to you and everything else." So they come out and they bat in the bottom of the first, and we had the lesser, or I would say the lesser, but just the younger, greenest of our 4 pitchers pitching. Um, and she was doing a good job. I think she walked in a run, or they did knock in a run. So they got on the board, but we get out of the inning, we come up. First batter walks, second one hits a ball into the outfield, like the girl that was on base scored, and then the coach walks out on the field and goes, "Come on, girls, line up. We're done." And, lines up to shake hands. And our girls are like they're so confused. They have no idea what's going on. And so we line up and we shake hands, and I'm helping out, so I'm out there in the handshake line, and the head coach was the last person in line for them. So he goes through the line, he shakes all the girls' hands, and their assistant coaches come all the way through everybody. But when the head coach got to where us coaches were, he turned around and walked away. And I'm just like, come on, man. Like, I'm like, we've taken plenty of butt whoopings. And like, there's a way you could have gone about that. Like, you could have, like, you could have walked out between innings and talked to her and said, "Hey, like obviously there's a talent disparity here. Um, can we maybe just, you guys, tell us, hey, you guys win the game. Can we put like a 4 run per inning limit in or something like that? And we'll do some things just to like, we got the time. Let's play. Let's finish the game. Let's let these girls play, get some reps, whatever. We could have put in like my daughter, who's like a brand new pitcher. We could have put her into pitch or so. Like we could have done a lot of things um, to make it enjoyable for the other team or whatever. But I'm like, I don't know what sort of lesson you're teaching your team. I guess just to quit when things are tough. I mean, because like I said, we were playing well within our classification. Unfortunately, there's just nothing below sea level, I guess. And so and the thing is we went on the next game. I mean, we were in a tight game and pulled away late in the quarterfinals. Semifinals, we were actually trailing at one point and had to come back. But in both those games, once we got it going, like we exploded offensively. So the final scores were like, we were only up like 6-3 in the quarterfinals and then pulled away and won like 10-3. Semifinals, we were losing 2-0, and I think we ended up winning like 11-3 or something, like, I mean, it's because once we took off on offense, it was big. And in the championship, I mean, it was scoreless until like the third inning, and we finally got to their pitcher. And then again, once we kind of got going, we got going. But like, so that happened. So Sunday comes around and our coach sends me a screenshot. That coach had texted him and was like, "Hey, I just want you to know that you're a disgrace. It's an embarrassment that you brought your team down here. You need to play teams at your own level. You have no business being in a tournament like that was advertised as a C-level tournament, yada, yada, yada." I mean, it was just, I'm like, man, and I told our coach, I'm like, there's no reason to respond because you're not going to change that guy's mind. Like
Nope.
he has his mind made up. And apparently, so our organization has a Facebook page, and they had posted something about the girls winning and their pictures. And he had commented on the picture, and it's like, "Ha ha ha, you guys sucked. I can't believe." I mean, it was like blasted us on Facebook. I'm like, what a maniacs! Like this guy's like implying that like we're taking this all way too seriously when it's very obvious to me. Like if there's anyone that's too wrapped up in this,
It's
it's this
him.
gentleman. And I'm like, I'm just appalled. Like I don't understand it, and I struggle with it.
I get triggered by people like this because it's 10U, right? Like that's
Sure.
the right. So even at that level, we're getting closer to where it matters more, especially if your daughter is going to be in this for the long haul. You're thinking about larger goals, but at the same time, they're still learning about setting an example, right? Like the coaches are setting the example. And when you take it too seriously, like, look, I've definitely been coaching around people who I've been frustrated with because I feel like they're not coaching. And I've talked about that here, but I've never made a scene at a game. I've never done something like that. It's usually me complaining to my wife or, some type of side commentary in my head. But he's not teaching the girls anything. As a matter of
No.
fact, he thinks he's making a stand, right? He thinks that he is teaching them to stand up for unfairness when really what it comes down to is your team was just better on that particular day. And I think this is a lot of projecting from him. I think he sounds to me like the guy who wants to be the guy who coaches like the best team ever. And what he has is not that.
Right.
And
What's
you know what I
wild is
mean?
you can see there's this app Game Changer that exists
Yep,
out
that's
there
what we
that they
used
use.
to.
So Game Changer with our because they're actually in like the league we're in. It's like the Heart of Illinois softball league, and they play in it. And like so we can see their record and their schedule and everything. Like they beat a team like a week ago, like 20-3.
Yeah.
So I'm like, obviously you're not that high and mighty. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I mean, I'm sorry that like our girls they played the best softball, the best day of softball that I've seen them play, like all year. And it happened to coincide with a day where they were playing some teams that weren't very strong that also weren't playing well. It was just this perfect storm, and our girls had a good day, and they shouldn't be made to feel bad for playing well.
No,
Like
not
I
at
said,
all.
we've been on the receiving end of plenty of those types of games. And we didn't pull anybody off the field.
At
You
least
just
he
get
shook the
better.
girls' hands. Because
Yeah.
I was expecting you to say that he didn't shake any hands at all, which is just. But again, you go up there and you shake hands and you call it a day. Like I just don't and the behavior that he exhibited afterward definitely tells me that something else is going on, right? Like he's got some things going on that are probably not related to coaching that seem to
Yeah,
come out in coaching. You know what I mean?
sure. Oh, that's usually the case, for sure. But just completely bizarre, I guess. Just I don't know, and I guess I should get used to it because I'm going to encounter more people like this the longer I stay involved with this
This is
sort
the
of stuff.
second time you've had an encounter like this, by
And
the way. Don't you
yeah,
remember the guy you almost got in a fight with last year?
oh,
You told the story on here where you
yeah,
actually
I
had to tell
don't.
the guy to kind of get back or something like that because he
Oh,
was
this
just,
was
you know,
yeah, this might have been actually not this past summer, but the
might have
summer
been
prior.
two. Yeah.
But yeah, because we were playing in like the rec league tournament. There's like a 12-year-old kid that's the umpire, and
Yeah,
this
that's
guy, and
right.
this is like a grandpa or something. I don't know. Maybe he wasn't a grandpa. He's either a grandpa or an older father. And he's just lighting this kid up, and I'm like, you need to sit down. I'm like, this
Yeah.
is ridiculous.
Oh
Um,
man, you just attract them. That's what happens, and that's the kind of audience that
I
we
just
attract here too.
I just can't like I'm proud of myself because I didn't engage in any way, shape, or form,
You should be.
and I wanted to really bad. But I knew that like it was the first time that I like actually like on the field helped, and I'm like, it's not it's not my job to speak for the organization, in this sense, you know what I
Corporate
mean?
talk. I like where your head's at.
But you know what I mean? Like I'm
Too.
representing the program as a whole. I know that our program doesn't stand for that kind of stuff and that kind of behavior. And so I took that into consideration when trying to, tell myself to not that would have been the first and last time I helped coach had I
That
engaged, I'm
probably
sure.
is true, but they would have known, God damn it, I don't stand for this kind of behavior. And they would have known you are a man of principle. Look, moving on from
Yeah.
softball, moving on from all that, that's a great story. And I will say that if you're out there and that's you, don't. That's all I'll say. So the big thing I think coming out of since our last episode together is, and you brought this to my attention, is college football playoff. So the college football playoff has changed dramatically in what, 6 months? It
Yeah.
has gone from 6 teams to 12 teams, and now, 4 teams to 12 teams. And now there's this new proposal out there that could come as early as 2026. So I want to talk about it because I think it's interesting, mainly because it's SEC and Big Ten driven. And that is really the crux of how this works. So, from what I understand, based off of what I read today, 16 teams is what they are proposing, 8 auto bids, and those would be auto bids from the SEC and the Big Ten. Those conferences would get 4 auto bids apiece. There would be 2 bids from the ACC, 2 from the Big 12, 1 from the Group of 5, and 3 at-larges. And it is possible that the Big 10 and SEC will have play-in games during championship week that would be for the at-large bids, or the auto bids from these conferences that we're talking about.
Right.
As far as the bracket's concerned, the first round would be 13 versus 6, 14 versus 5. The winner of 13-6 would play the number 3 seed, I believe, on the road, and the winner of 14-15 would play the number 4 seed. It said on the at home, but that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But
That's weird. Why don't they just seed it like a normal 1 through 16? Like
so then you
where
got 7-10, 6-11, 5-12, 8-9, and then those other 2 matchups that I talked
Yeah.
about. That's the proposal, but I just want to read to you what it would have looked like for 2024. Like if I apply the final rankings, I guess you will, for that. It would have been 16 Clemson versus 13 Miami. It would have been 15 South Carolina against 14 Ole Miss. And in the next round, you would have had 8 Indiana versus, or 9 Boise versus 8 Indiana, 12 ASU, Arizona State versus 5 Notre Dame. 10 would have been SMU versus number 7 Tennessee. Alabama would have been 11 against Ohio State, would have been number 6. And then you would have had the 14-15 winner play Penn State and the 16-13 winner play Texas. So that's what the proposal looks like. It seems to have a lot of juice from the SEC and from the Big Ten, and I can't imagine why not, right? Because you're taking up half the bracket, and it looks like that is going to probably catch on. It may not look exactly like this, but a lot of money stands to be made. It gets rid of all the nonsense that we talked about last time with conference champions making it in, right? All that kind of stuff. It's a drastic change, and I don't know if it's the ultimate change, but I do have some thoughts about it as a as a whole. But now that you've reacted to or you've heard it, I want to hear your reaction live.
Well, so also I think like they did decide, right, that the starting next season they're going to straight seed the 1 through 12, right?
Yes, so next
Correct.
season
Like
is
no
off the
auto
books
buys.
for this. Yes, and it'll
Yeah.
be the following season that this could actually be in place. So we could have 3 different formats in 3 years.
I don't understand why there is like this gigantic push. Like why we have to overcomplicate this. I don't know why it can't just be if you want to go 16 teams, fine. I don't care. The more the merrier. Top 16. Top 16. Just like they're gonna do the top 12 are in. Seed them 1 through 12, play ball. Like, I don't know why they can't do that. And I get it. Like, it's the powers that be, the SEC, the Big Ten. They want more. They want bigger pieces of pie. But like, if your team can't get in the top 16, they don't deserve to be in the playoff anyways. Like that's what I don't understand about it. And like, I mean, and this sucks. What really, uh, I blame like Boise State and even Indiana, um, for like because Boise State didn't show at all in the playoff. Indiana got beat bad by Notre Dame, and then but the thing is even Tennessee went to Ohio State and got their butts kicked. Like
Crushed.
so, it's like it's you can't just sit there and hone in on the Boise States of the world or whatever. And Indiana's a Big Ten team, so I I think that the argument when the people made against expanding the playoff was that it was going to water it down. If you're going to tell me that you're willing to put in auto bids for these conferences for potentially teams that exist outside of the top 16 ranked teams, like how's that not also watering it down? I don't, and like it's not always that they're playing. I get that, like especially historically, the SEC is usually a meat grinder, but they also play one fewer conference game than everybody else. And those schedules are, especially now that they've expanded the conference, those schedules are sometimes lopsided. They're not even schedules. They're not balanced. So one team may have a much more difficult schedule than another team. And sure, maybe that's their whole argument is that, well, just because Florida played a really tough schedule doesn't mean that they should be kept out of the playoff. I don't know. Money's gonna steer the ship at the end of the day, but I don't know why we have to overcomplicate it. Top 16 teams play ball.
Well, my whole philosophy on all this has changed so much. Last year, going into last year, you and I both were excited about this expanded playoff because we felt like it opened up possibilities, that it gave opportunity for more or better games, more better games. That's terrible English, but you get my point.
Yeah.
And I think that the results of year one, which is a sample size of 1, so as a statistician, that's a terrible sample size to be making decisions off of. I think it changed a lot of people's minds, and it certainly changed mine to think there was a lot of issues with how that happened, to the point that Ohio State had a great run, and it was pretty much easy for them. Not easy in the sense of like once you got to the top 4, but we both were looking at the bracket and thinking, man, like it could be a cakewalk for them going in. And I feel like it taught me something. It taught me that truly in this country, I don't think that there are more than 6 teams that have legitimately a chance to win the national championship. And no matter how big the playoff is, that fact doesn't change at all. And maybe I'm completely wrong. But
when no different than March Madness, 68 teams, you know what, maybe 10 of them have a shot, maybe.
Yes.
But
there's so many teams in that, and it's a flawed model. We both recognize it's not the best way to crown a championship. Right. It's the most fun way to crown a championship. Right. Like if they were doing it properly, they would make sure that the best teams were involved. And for the most part, they are. It's just there's so much chaos there. But football is different because football is like to me, the talent disparity between these teams is a lot larger than it is in like the NFL. And also, you're not putting up like Oakland against Kentucky, where the resources are so diverse. Anyway, when I look at this, I think it is complicated, but it also makes a lot of sense for the Big Ten and the SEC because they want to have more seats at the table. and they're guaranteed half, right? And that doesn't even include if an at-large team could get in from the SEC or Big Ten. So you could have more than half of this field. And I'll be honest, Brad, I mean, when you look at the landscape of these teams, I mean, there's an argument to be made that both of those conferences legitimately could have more than 8 teams that are worthy of making a playoff, but I don't know if they all have that many teams that could win a national championship. What is it about this that complicates it for you? Just the fact that there is no straight seeding?
We could certainly go through history and cite seasons where there are 6 great teams from the SEC, you know what I mean, that belong in any sort of playoff that would occur, right? But I guarantee you we could go find seasons where we'd like, there's 2 teams that deserve to play in a playoff, and I'm trying to pull up on my phone right now what the Big Ten final Big Ten football standings were, because I'm curious who the 4th team was.
Right, but even so, like when I look at this too, I think it might benefit the ACC and the Big 12 guaranteed 2 bids because yes, they got 2 bids in this time, but that was only because Clemson won State. The ACC. Yeah, Ohio State, right? Who won the whole damn thing. So right. This is also getting around a lot of what we've talked about, the incongruent nature of scheduling, the incongruent nature of how these conferences now, because they're so large, so you're going to have schedules that are just not there. And I wonder if over time this will maybe even it out. But we got 1 year of the old model. And instead of making little tweaks, we're going all in, right? And I fear, though, that this is just an accelerated step to a pro model. And that's what we've talked about forever.
Yeah. And first of all, I'll say this. I'm glad that I don't love the change necessarily. It's not my preferred way of doing it, but that doesn't make my way right. But I'm glad they're acting quickly, though. I hate it when you see hey, we're like, even when they created it, like we knew the playoff was going to happen like 4 years prior to when it started, or prior to when it began.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta hate when there's like, we're going to make this better, but we're going to wait 5 years before we do it. I love the fact that they've made up their mind and we're going to do it 2 years from now or a year from now, basically.
Instant gratification.
I can get on board with that. I respect that.
Yeah, I mean, yes, get to the model that works best for you, but it just makes me laugh because I was thinking today on my walk, we're coming up on 3 years of doing this together. In our first episode prior to Iceman and Coach, we reseeded the whole NCAA, and I think I told you offline, it ages better and better every year that goes by because what we did looks more and more realistic every day.
Yeah, well, it's only a matter of time. I mean, the NCAA is going to have to basically sell their soul to big-time college football, or the SEC and Big Ten, and I'm sure some other schools are going to leave and do their own thing. And I don't know what that looks like or how that's structured or whatever, but I think that, Greg Sankey said he goes to these meetings with athletic directors, and they're like, why are we people are now asking, why are we even still in the NCAA?
Yes.
And these schools have so much money. Like, I can't imagine that they need the NCAA for anything at this point.
It says a lot. I talked about this when I did a monologue a couple weeks ago about how NIL, transfer portal, it's getting out of control. The NCAA is not doing anything about it. Nick Saban's going to the president to try and fix that. And it is glaringly obvious to me that the NCAA is a figurehead. They don't actually do anything anymore because all the under the table or behind closed door stuff that they used to handle, that was their bread and butter, right? SMU, think about if you're SMU, you're thinking, we got the death penalty for something that is now out in the open. And now it's so overt, and the NCAA has less and less power because what are they going to do? Really, what are they going to do? You deem a guy ineligible or you suspend the guy for 4 games or whatever, right? There's just so little that they actually have, and they are powerless in this struggle to maintain power because these schools and these conferences are just doing whatever they want. For this proposal to be something that comes from the Big Ten and SEC, and for people to be like, yeah, we'll latch on because the ACC is thinking guaranteed 2 bids? Sure, we'll take that. That's two schools that get a bunch of money for just making it. It's the money, and you're right. That's the trail that we should be following, not the football.
Yeah, and they will, all the other schools that care about big time football, they will conform to whatever the SEC and Big Ten has to do.
Bow down.
Clemson, the Clemson, the Florida States, the Miamis of the world, those schools. I'm trying to think of others. Oklahoma State. So some of these other schools that in the Big 12 ACC specifically, like they will conform. Because it's going to be like conform or be left out. That'll
Well,
be your choice.
It elevates those schools. Like I think the schools that it might hurt are actually, I'm not sure. What that's a good question. What schools do you think it actually hurts more? Because those fringe programs that had success, like a Clemson, Florida State, right? They get elevated by this because they have a more likely chance to make the playoff, possibly more better recruiting. But I feel like the schools like Virginia Tech might actually be worse off in this
Maybe.
model.
I mean, and but yeah, I think even the group of 5 schools, because they're going to be left in this limbo between the top tier and
Yeah.
uh the FCS. And so it's like, what do they do? And I don't know if there's enough of them to do their own thing.
No.
So they
What do they
probably,
do, right?
I mean,
Like
they
they create
probably
their
would
own
have to
playoff?
they would probably have to just relegate themselves to the FCS, I would imagine, like a lot of the Mountain West schools,
That's
the American,
preposterous. Like
the MAC, like
yeah.
Maction's going FCS. I mean, I
Well,
don't.
yeah, I feel like there's a lot of attrition and collateral damage that's going to come from this new model, but it's here. I firmly believe that they will announce it sometime before the season starts, and we'll have it for next year. Like it's just, if there's so much push from the two biggest conferences, shit's going to happen. There's just no way it's not.
Now, one thing I do like the concept of these playing games and stuff, because again,
Yeah.
it's more great football.
Hopefully,
Which
we
we
thought
want
that
to see if
last
that's
year it
what
was
happens.
more shitty football.
Yeah,
But
but
I think again that's an outlier. Like I feel like our original sentiment is probably still correct. I feel as if there will be better games. It just so happened that the teams that made it in all laid eggs at the same time. Like it was just awful.
because think about this. What if you replace? I mean, conference championship games now, for the most part, essentially meaningless. Okay. Um, Outside of, I guess, seeding purposes. But if there's a clearly defined conference champion at the end of the regular season, especially if the 1 and 2 team have played head to head type of
Yes.
thing, there's no need to have a conference championship game at that point. And I mean, and even if you're going to say you're going to take the top 4, the top 2 teams, it's if there's no chance of them being mathematically removed from the top 4 based on the results of other play-in games, then it's okay, you don't have to play a game, you're in. You'll get seated on your merits to this point. And I think that, because I would much rather see, instead of some of these meaningless conference championship games, I would much rather see games between teams that are playing to get into the playoff.
100%.
Much more
There's
exciting,
stakes.
I would imagine.
Yes. I would venture a guess that conference championships now screw things up more than they help, because you have these random ass teams like Clemson who really had no business being in the playoff. They would barely be in this new model. They'd be the last team, and they won their conference, so they got in. And I think it hurt more than it helped.
Like this last year, you're telling me what, right? Because Ole Miss was right on the outside looking in, and didn't Alabama get shockingly close to being knocking on the door?
Yes.
They in the top 20 at least. So I mean, come on, you're telling me you're gonna be Ole Miss in Alabama in a playing game to the playoff? Yes, please.
Well, Alabama was the team everybody thought got screwed, and you're the one who said that they should not have gotten in. They had 3 losses, and they were all in conference, right? Because remember, everybody was saying, well, they should schedule better out of conference. And I think you said their conferences are all in their losses are all in conference, dummy, because that's what it is, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think that those playing games would be a lot better to watch because the stakes are actually higher. And that, I think, is a good thing for college football. It certainly, again, extends possible better games, and you're going to get bad games in that sample. I think overall it's worth watching, and I think it's going to happen. It's just how does it happen? And we'll probably get into that in the fall. But so you're a big NBA guy, as everybody on this show knows. But I'm using that as a vessel to talk about something. We were going to talk about it last week when the New York Knickerbockers were still in the playoffs. They have now since been eliminated. But I was listening to some folks talking about the idea of the Knicks being heroes in these playoffs, and I think I ventured this question to you about New York. Could New York or cities like it be a hero because they've been notoriously villains or vilified in terms of sports fandom? And I feel like there are cities and teams that, unless you're a fan of them, they are so very difficult to root for. So I wanted to ask you fundamentally, can a team from New York actually be considered a hero? Is it franchise dependent, or is the city itself, because everybody outside of New York doesn't like them, just every New York team is bad?
I think I think there's a lot of factors that play into that. I think you can be both at different points in time. Like as a society, we love seeing the underdog climb the mountain, but once you're there, like we love nothing more than to see you get knocked off that. I mean, how bad does America want to see the Chiefs like,
And they did.
get beat, yeah, I mean, people were pumped, and, like, how bad did everybody wanna see the Patriots dynasty come to an end?
And it did.
But, I mean, much earlier than it did,
Oh,
it's
yes.
like, um but I think about things like now this is a very unique circumstance, but I think about, that the first Yankees game after September 11th, right? Like the
Yeah.
Yankees were heroes, right? Just the fact that they were playing the game and the president throwing out the first pitch, all that stuff. I mean, scenarios like that, it's like everybody was a Yankees fan on that day, um, except for Red Sox fans, I'm sure. But but you get
No.
my. I mean, I think that it just depends, because the Cubs, I think once upon a time, right, lovable losers and everything else, and then it got to a point where it's like, you know, they started getting good and people's perception changes about them at that point in time. So, I mean, nationally, yes, like I think like villains are teams that like middle America. I don't know if you say middle America. That might be a little, I might be generalizing a little bit, but like, yes, generally speaking, most people like seeing, the teams from New York fail, I would say. People outside of New York, the Dallas Cowboys come to mind is one
100%.
that people, they're very polarizing.
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame would fall into that same
I think
category.
college is a little bit different though. Like I think that the pro teams have a better chance of flipping the script because I think they are more directly tied to some of the other factors that we talked about. You talked about the
Yeah,
Yankees in 9/11. A college team doesn't really get that rub unless you have something that takes place. Like I think Notre Dame, everybody shows up to see them lose unless you're a Notre Dame fan. It doesn't really matter what is.
yeah.
I mean, if there's some tragic event that happens in South Bend or with the team, yes. But I kind of agree. Like I went back and forth and thought a team can a team like the Knicks, who have always been hated on, be a hero just because they've been shitty for 20 years? I'm not sure that's enough. I feel like if you're going to be from a city like that, there has to be something else that goes along with it, because don't forget, New York, there's celebrities courtside. There's all that other extracurricular stuff that goes on. And I was just fascinated by the whole thing because I think people were actually rooting for them, but I found myself not wanting to, even though I really don't have a dog in the fight at all.
It, I think what it comes down to is teams like the Knicks, teams like, let's just throw the New York teams in together, but Knicks, Yankees, Giants,
J-
Cowboys down in Dallas. I mean, I
Jets,
just
I
think
mean, you know what I mean?
see,
Like,
that's what's weird. The Jets are a little different.
yeah,
The Mets are a little different. Um, I mean, so I do think there, there's definitely from franchises, but these are like, the Giants, the New York Giants. That's a blue blood NFL franchise, right? Um, same with the Knicks, same with the Yankees. And I think even if you go to like, like I said, the Cowboys, the Dodgers, I think that the thought is that like even when you're bad and you're losing, like no one within that organization is really experiencing any sort of hardship or that you still have probably the best of the best. You're still going to work at Madison Square Garden every day, like you said, with celebrities sitting courtside. You're still existing down in Jerry's world as a cowboy, and
Lakers
with
are another good
probably
team
the
for
the
that
best of
too.
everything. The Lakers would fall into that. And then on the flip side, you have franchises like the A's in baseball that don't have those things, that have probably the bare minimum that you could expect at the professional level. And so I think when you do see teams like that have success, the country does rally around them a little bit. But I do think I can kind of get on board with the sentiment though, of the or the Knicks being so bad for 2 decades. I mean, and then pretty just consistently awful. We do like that rebound story. Just, that's just like, oh, the once great New York Knicks, fell from grace, struggled for a long time, and rose from the ashes. But the thing is, everybody love them winning once, but don't win twice because then they'll hate you again.
Yes.
It's just a cycle. Yeah, I just think that's I mean, like the Red Sox are no different when they broke the curse. Everybody except for people that lived in the St. Louis metropolitan area was probably rooting for the Boston Red Sox.
And New
Uh,
York. Don't forget
you
about
know,
what happened prior
yeah,
to.
yeah, that's true. But I mean, everybody's rooting for the Red Sox, and but then it's like they didn't go away really, and so
No.
people got over it real quick.
Yes. But you mentioned the Midwest, and this is all kind of fueling into an interesting discussion about like these markets when it relates to these sports leagues, because the NBA Finals is Indiana and Oklahoma City, about as small market Midwest as you can get. And there's a debate right now as to whether that's a nightmare for the NBA. And I wanted your thoughts on that because I think that it depends on the sport. I think we've talked about hockey being kind of immune to that because hockey is much more of a localized sport, not a national sport. So, like, it doesn't matter that we're
Right.
getting Florida and Edmonton again. Nobody really cares about that. But I think the NBA is definitely not immune to that. And I think it does matter. And you're a casual, we'll call you a casual NBA fan, but I would venture a guess that you're not tuning in if you see Indiana and Oklahoma City. That's not doing it for you.
I w- I don't. I mean, let's call me more of an anti NBA fan, like because
Sure.
I would probably be more prone to tune in to something like that as opposed to if it were the Knicks and Lakers or Celtics and Clippers or something along those lines. I think that might actually be more intriguing for me. Um,
That's
because
fascinating
because
because, yes.
they're the underdogs. Both, they're two cities that you could feel good about, two franchises you could feel good about seeing be successful. And my goodness, like how great does the state of Indiana have it right now in professional basketball on both the men's and women's side?
Yep.
My goodness, struck
Hmm.
gold.
Also, Oklahoma City was 68-14 this year and silently under the radar. They were only 5 games away from the most wins in NBA history. And they're super young, have a really good young core of talent. And it just sucks that, like, Oklahoma City, like, if you live anywhere on the coast, that city, whatever, right? And
Right.
I'm just fascinated by this because money is what drives all this. We talked about that with college football and in the pros too. Money is definitely the driver, but it's all about views, people who are watching. And even when we talk about these sports struggling, especially baseball, we always say, well, nobody watched or nobody watches. And I wonder sometimes if these leagues find themselves at a juxtaposition of, well, I want there to be the future. We need to see the future of this league instead of 40-year-old LeBron there. But then
Yeah.
they're like, well, we'd get better ratings if LeBron was there than we do with these young teams. And all that, I feel like the national audience drives so much of those decisions. And it's fascinating because we're a fickle group, the national audience.
And I couldn't name you a single player on a lot of NBA teams, but outside of Malavi Leons, who I know is in the Oklahoma City organization,
Not even on the roster. He's
I
in the
could not,
organization somewhere.
I could not name you a single player on either one of those teams.
And
Um, But
Yes.
the fact, and I think my dad mentioned it, I think the fact that he did play in a few games, I mean, because he's played in a couple actual games, I believe, at different points
Hmm.
briefly. So I wonder if he'll get a ring if they win.
I would
That'd be
hope
cool.
so. I mean, they are the favorites, but there are a lot of young guys on these. It's funny because it also speaks to something we talked about with the NCAA tournament, how the name recognition in the tournament is gone because these guys don't stay very
Right.
long. They don't stay at the same place. And so we forget. I mean, Chet Holmgren is on Oklahoma City, and wasn't he on those Gonzaga teams that went to the finals, right? And so those are guys that we don't even you forget about him once they're in the NBA, but he's
Right.
on this young team and he's contributing. And Tyrese Halliburton, like I don't know where he played at college, and that speaks to again like all of this, but
I
all
wouldn't
this
know him if I walked past him on the street.
you probably have. I mean, you're kind
I
of like
would have
in the
no idea.
neighborhood, but according to your dad, he has played 6 games and will receive a ring. Apparently, he got notification from HR that that is something that will happen. So I don't know what the requirement is for getting a ring, but if he played in 6 games, seems likely that he's going to get a ring. So if you want to watch the NBA Finals, go ahead. Brad will not be doing that. I'm sure it'll be a great matchup. But before we finish off here, 2 things. Something that you've been talking about before. So you put this on my radar. Pete Rose, Shoeless Joe Jackson have now been taken off the banned list in baseball, and you have some thoughts.
I'm over. I think like baseball. We've had this conversation sort of previously. Baseball purists need to get off their high horse a little bit. Okay, when it comes to, and I get it, but the thing here's this: watching Pete Rose play baseball was highly entertaining. Okay, the guy played it at a high level.
He was excellent.
Period. You know what I mean? Um, Shoeless Joe Jackson, by all accounts. My dad probably saw him play. I didn't. uh, um, you know, great player. You know what I mean? And I understand that there has to be you have to protect the integrity of the game. I get that. But there's nothing in Pete Rose's performance as a player that makes you think for a moment that he wasn't trying to win. And like the same thing in Shoeless Joe Jackson's case, like the guy's statistics for the World Series were off the charts. Great, you know.
Yes.
And go ahead, yeah,
No,
interject,
that's
please.
actually something that I brought up to somebody recently when they talked about Shoeless Joe, and I said he was involved as part of the team in the Black Sox scandal. But if you look at his numbers in the World Series, he was the only guy who was really putting
Yeah,
in the work, and it was never quite known whether he actually was part of that or not because his stats were so good. And Pete Rose gambled on baseball while he was a manager, at least that we know of, not while he was a player. But I find this interesting because baseball, again, is trying to do a lot of things that are getting them out of the muck of being old and dusty. And they've been pretty successful, I would say, at least on the field stuff. The pitch clock has made things so much better, and they're trying different things. But this, to me, it feels like they did it because Pete Rose is dead. And that's the only reason that's happening because for some reason they couldn't be there or they couldn't accept hearing him talk about this if he were still alive. And that is part of the problem is that Pete Rose didn't really show any remorse or
yeah.
anything, you
I
know?
heard Dan Patrick talking about it, about how one of the biggest issues is that he didn't really show much contrition for it.
Yep.
And that every time when they would have the Hall of Fame induction ceremonies, that he would show up in Cooperstown at like an adjacent site and host autograph signings and basically just trying to divert the attention from whoever was getting in
Yeah,
to himself and things. And I never knew any of that. And I'm like, well, that's kind of a dick move. Um, and so hearing some of those things, it does make you feel a certain way about it, I guess. But I tried, like I said, I've said this a million times. I think we expect too much of these people as human beings and not just recognize them for their talents
for sure.
um, as players and stuff. I mean, let me ask you this. What was the most exciting, I don't even want to call it era. What's the most exciting era of baseball in your lifetime?
Oh, the steroid era.
Yes. Is the most, I mean, that was exciting. And it's like I understand, and it really all it is just like, oh, it's protect the integrity of the game and these records and everything else. Listen, like you've made so many changes now. You're starting extra innings with guys on second base.
Yep.
You've got the pitch clock. Like, come on. Like let's pump the brakes. Like, and I mean, not to go down this road, but like it should be if it's legal as a human being walking the streets to use steroids, then you know what? More power to you. Level everybody has that ability to do so if they choose to. You know what I mean? Like it makes a better product.
Well, and
Like
anabolic steroids themselves, I think, were illegal, if I'm not mistaken, at
see, and
that
I don't
time
even know.
period. But the point is for steroids is that they're calling it the steroid era. So it is what it is.
Mhm.
Acknowledge what it was. Acknowledge how it could have been different had it not been there, and just let them be. Like Barry Bonds should be in. Roger Clemens
Right.
probably should be in. And guess what? They probably both took steroids. It is what it is. So I just feel like this is maybe this is the first domino, to be a positive about this. This is the first domino maybe in getting to that point where now we're less restrictive from a personal standpoint. Like Kurt Schilling is a good example of a guy who probably should be in, but isn't because he's kind of a crazy person outside of baseball. And that's nothing to do with him on the baseball field, but that's why they're keeping him out. Maybe this gets us there. I don't know. It feels hollow in the moment, and it's something I think you called them cowards because they should have done this. Like,
Right.
Shoeless Joe Jackson has been dead for how long now?
Yeah, a long time. I don't know.
Yeah, so that poor guy, and he probably has no family that can even come to his Hall of
Right.
Fame induction ceremony anyway. They're just going to throw his bust up there and call it a day,
Yeah.
and that just sucks. But listen, last thing before we get, go ahead.
So this is what I don't understand about baseball. And I don't want to go on too long, but I was thinking about this earlier. It's like they have all these standards. They want to like standardize all this stuff, right? To some
Mm-hmm.
degree. They're talking about robot umpires and everything else. But like these are the things I don't get. You're the only sport, the only professional sport that doesn't play like the field is different everywhere you play.
Yep.
The dimensions are different every single place you play. But at the same time, when you go to Colorado, you have to play with a special ball that's been in a humidor. Like, come on. Like that's I mean, dumbest thing ever. That should be part of just the home field advantage. Part of the charm of playing in Denver is, hey boys, we're gonna put up some numbers out. But it's like, oh, we can't have people teeing off. We'd have everybody on the Rockies, setting home run records and everything else. Can't be having that because since they play it, a mile in the sky, that's unfair. All of a sudden, it's like I don't, man. Let the pitchers doctor the ball with any substance that they can get their hands on. I mean, I think it's just be a free for all. Be a hell of a lot more entertaining. I can tell you that much.
Well, you just reminded me of something, and I wasn't going to do this, but I have an impromptu stat for you.
Oh, this one.
I told you I wasn't planning on doing this, but I couldn't help myself because you mentioned something. Now, this stat isn't as good as it was 2 days ago, but it's still damn funny. So you mentioned Colorado. The Rockies are 11-50. That is their record this year. They are on pace, I think, to win 28 games. And right now, there are all but 6 teams in the league who currently have 28 or more wins in the league. So historically bad. You know what's hilarious? As of today, they had 10 wins. They've been swept 10 times this year. That's horrible.
Wow.
Yes.
Probably at home playing with that dead ass ball. That's probably
They are 6-22 in the friendly confines of Coors Field, 5-28 on the road.
talk about it. I mean, a stadium that's retained its name for a long time. You don't see that
Yes.
much anymore.
Oh, everybody's
It's got to
drinking
be
Coors
like,
still. Come on, buddy.
yeah, I know, but I'm saying that's got to be one of like 7 or 8 stadiums that has the same name that it had 15 years ago.
Yeah, there's not many, and it's a nice stadium. So just nobody's going because the team really sucks. So I thought that was
They'd be going if everybody was hitting bombs all the time. You're seeing 500-foot home runs. They'd be going.
not even sure the guys on the team right now could hit that many bombs. Anyway, but that is a good point by you. So before we get out of here, one thing that did happen that's sort of, I don't want to say close to home for you, but sort of, is the passing of former Colts owner Jim Irsay. Now, I will say this about Jim Irsay. He's probably the craziest person in terms of sports owners, but he also knew exactly who he was unapologetically himself. And for that, I think that that's really cool. But I wanted you to talk about the Jim Irsay era as a Colts fan, because that's kind of when you were a Colts fan, was mostly during that time period.
Yeah. And truthfully, I mean, I was aware of who he was, I guess, when like in the Colts heyday when I was really following the team. But when you have Peyton Manning, right? He
It's
seemed
easy.
okay. He seemed what I liked was at least in my opinion, he seemed okay not being the center of attention. He was fine with Peyton Manning being the face of the franchise, where you see like Jerry still would have been like up there next to him in every interview, and Jim Irsay, certainly an eccentric individual. Very interesting, lived life in some crazy ways that are well documented out there. But I heard Pat McAfee talked about him a little bit, got real choked up, but like by everybody that was close to him though, that like knew him, seemed to love the guy.
Yeah.
Um, and and that's really all that matters at the end of the day is that the people close to you who know you best, um, obviously had great admiration for him, cared a lot about him, and really felt that he cared a lot about them. And that's, I guess, all I need to know as far as judging somebody and kind of the way they live their life. Because if that's not the case, I mean, people won't necessarily speak out in a negative way, but you won't hear the positive
No,
things that people are saying.
absolutely
So
not. You are so right about that. So obviously, we send our condolences to his family and anybody who was related or knew him. We don't, obviously. But
no,
honestly, dude, think about it this way. If anybody else would have drafted Pat McAfee, it just would not have made sense. Like, you talk about two guys that seem like they are simpatico when it comes
yeah,
to their overall quirkiness, not giving a crap, shameless behavior. But you're right, never the center of attention. Everybody knew who Jim Irsay was, but he never was somebody who was just always there like Jerry. Like, Jerry is in a different category to me because he's so involved.
yeah,
And Jim Irsay was like, I'll cut the checks. I mean, I'm sure he said a stupid thing or two, things like that. I mean, there was also the cocaine thing, but I mean, it is what it is. Nobody's perfect, but so we'll see what happens with the Colts ownership. But that was kind of a shock to me because he seemed
yeah.
relatively young. But hey, life is short, folks. So don't take anything for granted. All right, my man. Good show today. We kind of got through most of the big details, and hopefully we'll be back soon. But what you got for us before we head the hell out of here?
Oh, glad to be back here doing it again. Hopefully, not as long until the next time. Busy week of sports games here. The rest of the week, as long as the rain holds off. Big local travel tournament. Our organization's hosting a tournament this weekend, so I'll be busy with that. It should be a lot of
Excellent.
fun. And counting down the days, man. It's like 58 days until our family vacation down to the Gulf Coast. So looking forward to that as well.
Excellent. We will be in Maine later on this month for a week with my family. So we got a lot going on. Summertime is here. For those of you listening after the fact, 703-718-6314 is the number if you want to give us an opinion, tell us we're full of crap, whatever. Just call the number, leave us a voicemail, leave us a text. We love it. If you're listening, obviously rate us, reviews, all that good shit. Like, subscribe. The stuff we're supposed to say that we never say. That's probably why we don't have any following and your dad's
That's
watching
definitely
us.
that's definitely
That's the reason. We just got to keep doing that more. We got to keep plugging away at all this other stuff. But my man, it's always good to see you. It's always good to see the people out here in the chat. Hope this finds everybody well and safe as I always do. And folks, we'll see you next time. This is Iceman and Coach.